What's up guys, and welcome back to a new video with this Toyota GT86. In this one we're gonna perform a pretty major service. We're gonna change out the engine oil filter, the differential fluid, transmission fluid. We're gonna flush the brake fluid with this nice modal .4 brake fluid right here, which can take some pretty high temperatures, and the air filter as well as the cabin air filter. So it will be a pretty major service. Fortunately for me, the spark plugs are already changed on this car. It was done while the recall job was done with the valve springs, so that's pretty nice for me. I won't have to do that because that's a relatively big job. You basically need to lift the engine a little bit to change them. But anyways, let's get to it and get this job done. First things first, let's raise the car up in the air with the help of my lift. As we can see, there's a lot of skid plates underneath this car to aid with the aerodynamics. So let's go ahead and remove the two in the front. This metal shield, and then there's a plastic right behind it in order to get access to the drain plugs to the transmission. If you just want to do an oil change, there's actually an access hole to the drain plug. And as we can see here, there's a lot of dirt accumulated on these skid plates, and of course we just can't leave it like that, so I'm washing it real quick with the power washer, and then on the side that's facing the underneath, I'm gonna degrease and scrub it down a little bit to just make it look a little bit better. So let's go ahead and start with an oil change. So let's remove the drain plug and let the old engine oil drain out. Actually, this oil isn't too old. They did replace it with the recall job, but it always feels good to know what's in there and to do it yourself so that you know it's done properly. These OEM filters from Toyota is really high quality. They even provide you with the grease on the O-ring already applied. So that is really convenient. Make sure you use the OEM drain plug gasket. These crush washers makes a really good job on sealing them, and I know on Subarus, the Subaru engine can be a bit sensitive to what kind of drain plug washer you use. So make sure you just go with the OEM one. To do a complete engine oil change, you need 6 liters of oil. I think the engine takes around 5.4 liters, so you need 6 liters in total. And with that done, the oil pressure was fine and no leaks. Let's go ahead and drain the transmission fluid. And always make sure you can remove the fill plug first before you go ahead and remove the drain plug. And as we can see there, once I remove the fill plug completely, it drains a lot faster. Always make sure you wipe off the sealing surface before you tighten the plugs. And then I just fill it up until it starts to drip out of the fill hole. And you can actually squeeze the bottle above the transmission and fill it that way. Otherwise you need to use a pump or a funnel and a hose or something like that, but these can actually be filled in place. Same type of plugs on the rear differential. 10mm hex keys. Just make sure they seat in there properly so you don't strip out the plugs. And same principle here, really. You just drain it out and fill it until it starts to drip out of the fill plug. There's a magnet on the drain plug, so make sure you clean that off really good. And there were almost no metal shavings at all on the drain plug, which is good news. In contrast to the transmission, I'm actually using copper washers here on the plugs because the differential casing is made out of cast iron. And I'm using the same fluid here as I did with the transmission, Modal's gear fluid. It's a really high quality gearbox oil that can also be used for differentials. And you actually don't need a limited slip type of gearbox fluid for the rear differential on this one, even though it is technically limited slip, but it's a torsion style rear axle, so you don't need the limited slip additives. And then on to replacing some filters. I'm starting with the cabin air filter right here. It's a really simple, easy swap. You just remove the glove box and there it is. Just pull on two tabs, pull out the old filter, and then just replace it with a new one. Just make sure you note the orientation of the filters. There's usually arrows that points to the direction it should be fitted. And this one was definitely in need of replacement. There was a lot of leaves and dust and debris on it. This is often an overlooked filter that many forget to replace. And then on to the air filter. Make sure the orientation of this one, because it's not completely symmetrical. And I actually lost the footage of me putting in a new one. But anyways, on to the next thing, and that is bleeding the brakes and replacing the old brake fluid with some brand new .4 Modal high temperature brake fluid. And I'm using an automatic brake bleeder here that is driven by compressed air. It creates a vacuum and you just put on the hose on the bleed nipple right there. This is a huge time saver. I really love this tool. You can also use it to bleed clutches. It makes it a one-man job and it offers a perfect bleed every single time. So I just bleed it until everything is, or it's almost empty in the brake fluid reservoir, and I just fill it up with new fresh brake fluid, and I just repeat those steps a couple of times for each corner. That way you have a perfect brake flush on the whole system, and it doesn't take a lot of time at all. So it's a super helpful tool. And of course I couldn't leave the brake calipers in this state, so I actually decided to give them a quick clean and sand off all of the loose rust, and then give them a quick coat of some silver paint. And I went with the silver paint because that's how they came from the factory. The factory calipers were painted silver when the car was new, once upon a time. And also I had a can of silver caliper paint, so that's just what I went with. Now really, to do a perfect repaint of the brake calipers, you should probably go ahead and sandblast them, but I don't have a blasting cabinet, so this will definitely not be one of those perfect restorations that you can find on YouTube these days, but they definitely made it look better, the overall appearance, and hopefully it'll last a couple of years. Hopefully, because I'm not gonna be driving around in the winter time, or at least I'm not planning to. So that was the main focus and goal with this job, just to make them look better and more presentable. But yeah, it's definitely not one of those perfect restorations. And then for the calipers themselves, I'm actually just brushing them off while they're in the car, to avoid spillage and whatnot when you disconnect the brake lines. So I just did my best to paint them while they're still attached to the car. And then I gave the brakes a quick service, re-lubing the glide pins and cleaning off the brake plates and putting some anti-seize on them. For the glide pins, I usually go with silicone paste. That's usually what's recommended. And for the contact points where the brake pads ride against the caliper holder, I'm usually using anti-seize. And the one I'm using right here is ceramic anti-seize. And I have to say, I'm pretty happy with the results, considering it didn't take too much effort to do this job. And with that all done, it's time to put back the skid plates, which are held on with some 10 and 12mm screws, as well as a couple of clips here and there. But there's still one problem, as we're gonna find out in just a second. Now that it's gotten warmer, I've noticed that my AC isn't working, or it's working intermittently. It works for like 1 minute when you just start the car, and then it goes off and it turns on and it goes off again for the rest of the ride. And you can clearly see it because the AC clutch just releases after like 30 seconds, 1 minute or so, and there's no power going through it. There's just one power wire going into the AC clutch coil, then a ground coming out straight from it, and it grounds through the casing of the AC pump. So if we go over here, I tried to search online for the AC clutch relay, but I couldn't find one. It doesn't say in the manual either, but I think it's this one after a lot of researching online, but I'm not really sure, as I said. But you can see that someone has actually been in here and messed with it. So I don't know, maybe they noticed the problem, the previous owner or the workshop or something, and just checked it out. So I'm gonna see if the control side is fine, and if it is, it's probably the relay, so I'm gonna have to change that if that's the case. So about the AC, I actually came up with a pretty clever idea, if I may say so myself. The horn, the relay for the horn is exactly the same as the relay for the AC condenser, or the AC pump, I should say. So I thought, well, that's a function that you don't use for more than just a couple of seconds at most. You just honk the horn and that's it. And remember, the relay worked initially, but then after a minute or so, it shuts off. So I actually just switched place between the horn relay and the AC relay. And now, after driving for 5-10 minutes, it's running absolutely beautifully. The AC blows ice cold air, so problem fixed. It's a free fix. I was going to buy a new relay, but then I came up with the idea to just replace the horn with the AC pump relay. So everything works now. The horn works. You know, I'm not gonna sit on the horn for a minute straight. You don't do that in most cases. So everything works now. So it's a success. There we have it. Complete service done to this car, except for the spark plugs, which they are already replaced, so we didn't need to worry about that. But anyways, feels good to have it done right now. We don't have to think about that anymore. Not the most exciting thing to look at, I guess. I mean, maintenance is just something you have to do. I just wanted to put this video up anyways, just to show you guys that it is done, so that we can focus on the next thing right now, and that is full detail. That'll probably be the next video for this one. So yeah, the next video will probably be the full detail of this video, and I'm super excited for that one. So stay tuned and make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss out on that episode. There are a ton of wash-induced scratches on this car, so it will be super satisfying to take care of that and have it all dialed in. So yeah, until next time, have a good one, guys. See you.